Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Mission Soil podcast, your go-to podcast for all information related to soil health and the mission soil. I'm your host, Dominic Smith, and I'm very happy to embark on this journey with you. So, soil. It's not just dirt. A healthy soil is the foundation of life itself. Imagine a world without it. No food, no clean water, no thriving ecosystems. That's the reality we face if we don't prioritise the health of our soil. A healthy soil is the unsung hero of our planet. It's where the magic of growth happens, where plants draw nutrients and water, sustaining life above ground. But it's not just about agriculture. Soil filters water, it acts as a carbon sink, and it supports diverse habitats that are essential for biodiversity. However, our soil is under threat. Did you know that more than 60% of EU soils are estimated to be unhealthy? It's a staggering statistic. Soil, though resilient, is also incredibly fragile. It takes centuries to form just 1 centimetre, yet it can be eroded or contaminated in the blink of an eye, whether by industrial accidents or extreme weather events. As we delve into the importance of healthy soil and the urgent need to preserve it, I'm excited to introduce our 3 esteemed guests. Bridget Emmett, Principal Scientist at the United Kingdom's Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and member of the Mission Soil Board. Codescu, Head of Unit for Land Use and Management at the Directorate-General for Environment of the European Commission. And last but not least, we have Kerstin Rosenow, who is the Head of Unit for Research and Innovation at the Directorate-General for Agriculture and Rural Development, and Head of the Mission Soil Secretariat. Welcome to you all. I'd like to start off with a quick question for all of you. What does healthy soil mean for you? Jon, let's start with you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I see soil as the assurance of a healthy life. Soil is such an incredible asset which is limited. It takes 1,000 years to create a few centimeters of healthy topsoil, and that we often take it for granted. We all use soil directly or indirectly for many activities, and in particular to source our food. We want it free of contaminants and preserved in good condition for many years to come. We want it fit to protect us from droughts and floods.
Kerstin?
We often perceive soil as an inert matter beneath our feet. Yet, under the surface lies a bustling ecosystem teeming with life. Earthworms, moles, and fungi. Plants, flowers, and trees extend their root into fertile soil, letting nutrients, water, and air circulate. To me, healthy soil is a living organism harmoniously interdependent with its surrounding environment. It's really a dynamic, intricate, and beautiful web of life, and we need to protect it.
Bridget, what does healthy soil mean for you?
Well, very simply, our future and our planet's future. Without healthy soil, future generations will have lost an essential resource which has built up very slowly over many millennia, and it will take us many millennia to replace it if we continue to use and abuse it. Surely we are better than that. Do we really want that to be our legacy for our children and our grandchildren? On a more personal note, I just love that soils are so fabulously diverse in their character, ranging from deep peat bogs to thin alpine soils, productive farmers' fields to nutrient-poor soils which support our native plants, woodland soils, coastal margins, and urban parks. We really don't know how much soil biodiversity there is which relies on this variety, but it is estimated it may be as much as 25% of all global biodiversity. But soil is hidden beneath our feet and slowly being eroded, contaminated, compacted, covered in concrete, or just thrown into landfill. We need to change that and make all soils healthy again.
Thanks, Bridget. So, now that we've defined what healthy soils are, can you explain why they're important?
Well, we ask a lot of our soil, and there's not actually a lot of it. Just 22% of the Earth's surface is covered in land and soil, which can be used to support our growing population, as well as supporting our land-based wildlife. Most of the planet is actually ocean or barren. And we've already degraded 20 to 30% of our global soil resource, even though it's crucial to our future and do so many things for us, such as produce food and biomass for our growing global population, currently sitting at 8 billion and expected to grow more, capture and store carbon fixed by plants, clean and regulate water, retain and recycle nutrients for our crops and native vegetation, provide a home for biodiversity, and perhaps something we forget about is also to support our built infrastructure such as road, rail networks in our towns and cities. We need stable soil that is not susceptible to landslips and erosion. So to capture this complexity of the many things soil does for us, the EU mission defined a healthy soil as a soil with the continued capacity to support ecosystem services.
So, how do we know if these services are happening and if we are succeeding in making soils healthy?
Well, if we get it right, a healthy soil will do so many things for us. It'll help mitigate climate change by storing carbon captured by plants over past millennia, and also critically keep sequestering newly captured carbon by plants today. A healthy soil will also ensure nutrients and water are more accessible to crops and grassland, which is really important during the more frequent droughts we are now experiencing. This will be due to better soil structure and build-up of organic matter, and it will result in making crop yields more resilient to future climate extremes. This same improvement in soil structure will also reduce the losses of nutrients in soil to rivers and coastal areas from farm and forest land. Reducing areas of bare soil and more efficient use of fertilizers will also ensure this happens. In a healthy soil, biodiversity will be supported to known optimal levels possible for each land use, whether that is a peatland, a farmer's field, a woodland, or an urban park. By stopping covering our soils with concrete and cleaning up contaminated soils, this will allow our soils to breathe and live again, and so store and regulate carbon and water in our towns and cities. Sustainable urban drainage systems is just one approach to make this happen. And of course, soil can hardly be healthy and do any of this for us if it is sitting in a landfill.
And what is the status of soil health in the EU, and why are our soils under threat?
Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, we estimate just 40% of our soils in the EU are healthy. So that means 60% are unhealthy. What we mean by that is that they have a degradation issue such as sealing, compaction, contamination, nutrient enrichment, erosion, or salinization.
Why has this happened?
Well, as Kerstin has said, soil is hidden beneath our feet. And perhaps it's in part because of this that it has been underappreciated, poorly protected and regulated compared to our other natural assets, such as biodiversity, air and water, which have had much more robust and coordinated action. It seems to be an unfortunate lesson throughout our history that we exploit a resource until it is proven to be at risk, and only then do we take action. We didn't even monitor our soils in the EU or across the world until relatively recently, which meant we were relying on signals and other assets to tell us if there were problems. Unfortunately, these signals were either obscured, as for example, we used the plough and fertilizers to maintain crop production and offset soil degradation. This is now changing as we move to more sustainable land management practices and the signal from the soil becomes more obvious. Another issue was the signal was misinterpreted, as for example, signals in our rivers told us nothing about the ongoing loss of carbon in our arable soils. And also, by the time nutrients and contaminants reached rivers and coastal areas, our soils were supersaturated and very difficult to restore. And finally, sometimes we just ignored the little information we had and signals we had about soil degradation, as for some they considered soil health as a private issue for private landowners, forgetting we are all affected by soil degradation, as carbon released from the soil contributes to climate change, which we all experience, and soil erosion damages our rivers and coastal areas, and I could go on. It is a very public issue.
Thank you very much for this comprehensive overview. So, Clearly, the health of our soils, and by extension, our health and life on this planet, is under threat. Jon, your point of view from the Commission side is invaluable here. What does the EU do to address this problem?
The Commission came up in 2021 with a new EU soil strategy that set out a coherent set of tangible actions to protect, restore, and use our soils sustainably in line with the European Green Deal. The objective was to get the EU soils healthy again by 2050. A key action for the Commission was to present a legislative proposal to enable this objective. The Commission made good this commitment in July 2023 when it presented a proposal for a directive on soil monitoring and resilience, the Soil Monitoring Law. The proposal establishes a monitoring and assessment framework based on soil districts that are important in developing adequate knowledge about local soils and sustainable management of soils thereof. It builds on national monitoring systems, allowing us to move forward by tapping into precious experience while keeping burden and costs low. The proposal also sets out sustainable soil management principles to enhance the health of soils with the effect of increasing the soil resilience, as well as stabilizing and even increasing crop yields and reducing agricultural inputs, such as water and fertilizers, in the medium to long term. The proposal put forward provisions to support farmers and foresters by advising on rewarding sustainable management and healthy soils. But let me point out something important. The proposal was carefully thought through to avoid forcing undue measures on soil managers and thus to avoid improper solutions and excessive costs. The proposal leaves considerable margins to authorities and soil managers that allows adaptation to national and local circumstances, while at the same time ensuring that we do not leave anyone behind. The proposal also requires the identification, investigation, registration, and assessment of contaminated sites following a risk-based approach. Contamination should be addressed where it poses significant risk to human health. The soil monitoring law also reflects the available scientific knowledge. Recent studies on specific practices at farmland level conclude that the costs of sustainable soil management are in many cases outweighed by the economic benefits and in all cases by the environmental benefits. This proposal creates the requisite framework to allow healthy soils to deliver their benefits. Not least, the Commission acknowledged that funding and technical support are vital to enable the transition to healthy soils. The current multi-annual financial framework already presents several funding opportunities, which we have mapped out. The proposal also aims to stimulate the interest of private funding to invest in healthy soils. We're also convinced that the Horizon Europe mission, a soil deal for Europe, will contribute concretely to identify and spread the best soil management practices adapted to local conditions through its living laboratories across the EU.
Thanks, Jon. And could you share some insights into the current developments in relation to the proposed soil monitoring law?
There are pending discussions between the Commission and the co-legislators, the European Parliament and the Council, concerning the proposals. The Commission hopes that an agreement can be reached in the near future. We will need to make efforts to reach a common position, ideally by the end of the year, while we need to be aware that this year is a special electoral one.
Thank you, Jon. Here to tell us more about the Mission Soil is Kerstin Rosenow, who is also head of the Mission Soil Secretariat. Kerstin, firstly, why a Mission Soil? And secondly, how does it aim to improve soil health?
When we had to identify key societal challenges, we had no doubt healthy soil and sustainable land management is really a major challenge for humanity and should be addressed as one of the key missions. So, life depends on healthy soils. We need to find new ways to manage our land in a sustainable manner to make sure it can continue deliver vital ecosystem services like the production of food, the filtering of water, the provision of an incredible biodiversity, or the regulation of the carbon cycle. Soil health is fundamental to safeguard our life and the life of future generations. The mission, A Soil Deal for Europe, or Mission Soil in short, is really rooted in Horizon Europe, the EU's research and innovation framework program, but goes much beyond. The EU missions are a novel instrument that put research and innovation into a new role, combined with new forms of governance and collaboration, as well as by engaging citizens to bring concrete solutions to some of the greatest challenges of our time, and soil health surely is one of them. The Mission Soil has four distinct areas of action. It funds interdisciplinary research and innovation projects that advance knowledge about the protection and restoration of soil, in particular in areas where there are gaps, for instance, social science and business involvement. It will provide scientific knowledge for the soil health law that Jon has just presented. In addition, it is contributing by working hand in hand with the European Soil Observatory to harmonize soil monitoring across the EU, again, inputting importantly into the soil health law processes. It is also promoting soil literacy, communication, and citizens' engagement through the mobilization of students, teachers, municipalities, and regions, but also artists and cultural and creative industries. Moreover, at the core of the mission soil, that's really key, lies grassroots, bottom up innovation and testing. It's key that we do not only experiment in laboratories and that the results stay on the shelves, but they need to be tested in real life to really also achieve impact. The objective of the mission is to create 100 living labs and lighthouses by 2030. So, living labs are places where to experiment soil friendly practices and technologies on the ground in real life conditions. They will accelerate the transitioning towards healthy soils. In such labs, researchers and land managers and other relevant actors collaborate to identify site specific challenges and develop tailored solutions to address them effectively. So that's important because the climatic conditions and the soil conditions are different in different places in Europe. Lighthouses are exemplary sites where to showcase good practices. In lighthouse farms, forests, or urban sites, farmers, foresters, or spatial planners can learn from each other. By sharing and expanding their knowledge, they will improve the way they manage land for their own benefit and for the benefit of society. As next steps, we are looking into reinforcing the collaboration with the private sector and philanthropic organizations. Exploring co-investment opportunities will be key to achieve the full potential deployment and upscaling of solutions. To sum up, the mission is really an extraordinary instrument that is mobilizing people, resources, and funds across policies to lead the transition towards healthy soils. Just one example, in April 23, we launched the Mission Soil Manifesto, so just a year ago, that everyone, being an individual citizen or an organization, can sign to voice their support, gain visibility and access to mission led knowledge, and get involved in mission actions. To date, we count with 2,700 signatories already, including more than 450 legal entities, and everybody out there is cordially invited to sign up also to the manifesto.
Thank you very much, Kerstin. Before we go, I would like each of you to share how you see the future of soils in Europe. Let's start with Bridget.
Well, I think better protected, appreciated, and improved is my hope. And I think we can see the first signs of this now happening due to the actions of the EU mission and Parliament and some innovative land managers changing how they manage their land. Wouldn't it be great if Europe could be seen as a leading example of how to protect, restore, and inspire people about soil? But I just want to add, we must not just export our problems to other nations outside of Europe as we create a green and pleasant land for ourselves. We should take a more ethical approach to our global responsibilities than we have had in the past.
Jon, how do you see the future of soils in Europe?
With a lot of optimism, but if we are ready to take action. We've wasted precious time in knowing our soils and protecting them. The good news is that science is here to help us, and the soil mission can play a critical role to develop it further. But we also need some minimal common rules to make sure we go in the right direction and to support action and research.
Kerstin?
The future of soils in Europe presents both challenges and opportunities. For instance, we are facing a high or very high risk of desertification in 1/4 of the land in southern, central, and eastern Europe, and we need to act urgently to revert negative trends. At the same time, the Mission Soil is creating a community of thousands of people and hundreds of public authorities, businesses, and organizations that care for the protection and restorations of soil and that act together. Overall, the future of soils in Europe will depend on the success of the collective efforts to address pressing challenges and foster sustainable land management practices. The Mission Soil multiplies the opportunities to make sure EU soils will be protected and restored as the very basis of life.
I'd like to thank our esteemed guests for taking the time to join us on the Mission Soil podcast. And thank you to you, our listeners. That wraps up our inaugural episode. I hope you've gained valuable insights into the significance of soil health and the Mission Soil initiative. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the transformative projects funded by the Mission Soil. We'll be speaking with representatives from these projects, learning about their innovative approaches, and hearing about the impact they're making on the ground. And before we go, I would just like to urge our listeners to sign the Mission Soil Manifesto at our website, mission-soil-platform.ec.europa.eu. If you don't want to miss any new episodes, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.